Well, it probably seems a little bit early to be doing this, but today we figured there's enough going on that we were actually going to do our very first garden tour of 2023. Well, it's a bit of an overcast day and it's getting cooler. On the weekend, we had some, what I would have say is pretty unseasonably warm weather, but it's really kicked some of the garden stuff into gear, although we still have to wait before we can really go on to tier two. But we figured this was a good opportunity to sort of show you what's going on. So first off, the raised beds are getting a bit of a makeover, or at least we started it. So last year we did put down some stuff to basically create paths in amongst the beds. And at least where we are, for right or for wrong, or for better or for worse, we had ridiculous weed growth between the beds. So we are switching to gravel. And as you can see, we've made a decent start. So you can see the transition and you can see the weeds. Now, we're not really worried about the weeds from a functional perspective, but it's really hard for us to maintain it. So we are going to go with the gravel mulch and hope that at least keeps the weeds at bay a little bit. But I suppose in some ways that's not really a very interesting part of the garden tour. The interesting part is sort of what's going on, and I've already got a little bit of a sneak peek behind me here. So there is some pretty impressive growth of greens already in the garden, and this is our turnip patch. And this is a bit of a weird turnip patch because our goal is to get turnip seeds. So most people probably wouldn't even consider trying to get their turnips to go to seed, let alone take the time, as we did, to overwinter them so that they basically do that. But if you're trying to be sustainable, what's behind me here is a good way to do it. Now this bed has been covered for basically the whole winter. The last few days we've obviously opened it up and it's had a really good amount of rain. And you can see the turnip flowers, that's not going to focus, but the turnip flowers are already starting to basically come into being. So it won't be too long. And the nice part is this little patch will produce likely hundreds, if not thousands, of seeds. And that in itself is pretty impressive. But of course, it's not just turnips. In this bed beside them, which was also covered for the year, we have kale doing amazing. We have to get some more kale planted, but these kale seedlings, I'm going to call them seedlings even though they've been out here since last summer, they're growing amazing. And of course you can see they are surrounded by basically one of the wild lettuce type plants. Quite a few of those. We are harvesting some, but there's too much here for us, and we don't want all this to go to seed, so we have been also using it as rabbit food. And another thing that we're super happy about is the elephant garlic. This is a small patch that was actually gifted to us from Honey Badger's homestead. So thank you, Amanda, for that. And although when we got it, it was very slow to do much, we left it in place and it's coming back. So I'm very curious to see what happens this year. I think this will be the year of dividing and seeing where we go with this. So that's a lot of green, but to be honest, the vast majority of the garden right now is not very green. I will kind of give you a bit of a panoramic view here of some things that are going on, and we still have a lot of garden cleanup to do before we can really get into planting. So kind of panning around here, you can see our barrels are still in their normal winter state. Not much going on except for a little bit of weed growth. We'll see if anything comes back in these. There wasn't much that was planned to. The kale beds, the dwarf Scotch kale is actually coming back in that one bed. There's quite a bit of green. And even some of the one that was uncovered for the year has come back. But the remainder of the beds are looking pretty dead. Now I can't remember if we've already talked about these, but these are red mulberry seedlings. And we have quite a few of them in here. If you look really closely, they are starting to bud out, which is awesome because this bed was not covered and they didn't all survive, but the vast majority of them did. So I'm very curious to see what happens here, and we are obviously going to have to move these later this year, but for now, this is a good crop of little seedlings. We had hoped to get to a little bit more raspberry tending before now, but we haven't got it all done. Our yellow raspberry patch here, as you can see, has escaped the bed, and we still may have some time to move that. Raspberries are pretty forgiving. And the intent is to convert this bed, which doesn't get as much sun as we'd like, and already has some volunteer yellow raspberries that have colonized it, basically be converted to a second bed of these, because we do quite like them, although we wouldn't probably keep them as a main crop food. But there is some other stuff in here that we might salvage in the process, like that curled dock that's growing over there by the T-post. But all in all, there's a little bit of greens in here, like the dandelion greens, that we can put to use. And we now know curled dock is very useful, so having a few plants, and I hesitate when I say that, but a few going to seed in here is not the end of the world. So of course, not everything that's growing in the garden is stuff we actually want. Although stinging nettle is useful, it's not something you really want everywhere. So we are going to remove this from this bed here soon, because we have a lot of it. And I'm curious whether we'll actually be able to get it all out of here. But we will definitely be trying. The nice part of it is, even at a fairly young size, we can still do something with it, and so it's not a complete waste. We have yet to clean out the main greenhouse. It's up until this past weekend, it's been a little bit cold. We kind of went from winter to summer without a spring here, for lack of a better way to put it. But we've started our water collection again, so there'll be plans there in the near future. And although we don't have it set up yet, we do have plans for this space here that's basically just been a collect all junk pile for the moment. I think the most impressive thing that we have on the go at the moment probably is the garlic patch. It's growing like mad, and we've kind of made the discovery that we grow way more garlic than we can actually consume. So this year is going to be interesting because there's a lot of it there. But it's all looking amazing, and it's come through the winter fantastic, even though we got it planted quite late. So definitely proof of concept that garlic is forgiving. The rest of the garden is looking a little bit sad behind me here, but we've got some cleanup to do and we've got some plans. And although not necessarily a garden related thing, we have managed to finally get the apple tree off the chicken coop. And so part of the cleanup will be removing the remnants of the apple tree from the garden. So kind of going through the garden early like this, just doesn't seem like there's that much going on. And it really feels like we're a bit behind. We say that all the time, but it's kind of true. April has gone by really fast. We're not quite as set up as we would like to be on a lot of things, but we still have time. So we are going to, in the next week or so, be doing a lot of planting inside. But I'm going to take you in the house and show you a few things that are going on in there, because although that's not the outdoor garden, it's all pretty much destined to come out here.
And as I totally interject as I'm pulling weeds out of the garden, this year we are way ahead of what we've ever been before. Even though it feels like, as Chris said, we're behind, we're still ahead of anything we've ever done before.
And on my way to the house to show you what's going on inside, as I walk past these black currants, it's that ever lasting reminder that there's still a lot to do. If you're going to grow as much food as you can, you have to get stuff done, because these little plants have basically lived in these since last summer, and we really need to get them out to where they need to go so that they can actually produce for us and get off to a good start here in their new places. So inside here, one of the first things I'm going to talk about is celery. This is Chinese pink celery, and these plants survived the winter, albeit, as you can tell, they weren't outside for the whole winter. They did try to go to seed on us in the house, and I need to cut that back. But at the bottom, there is new growth. Unfortunately, the learning curve for us was our house is not ideal, even in the basement, to keep these sort of at a, I don't know, level that they don't start to really grow. And unfortunately, the aphids absolutely love them inside. We have our rosemary plant. I think this one's a pretty impressive one, because we've managed to keep this alive all winter, to the point that now it is back here out on the porch, and it's perking up quite a bit. It got a little leggy. I don't think it loved being inside for the entire winter, but we'll see how it does. So over here, you can see we've got some pretty good sized lettuce that's basically ready to go out. We're going to wait until the little cool spell and then put it in garden beds where we can cover it a little bit. But there's a bit of a mix there. We're going to spread them out because we've labeled them so that we can save seeds from them from this first round. And you can see here that we've got quite a few things that we basically sowed and put it on the porch for the winter months. And like this cilantro, which is right here, it's coming up pretty good. So we're going to have to keep an eye on all this and likely get some of it separated here. But in that bucket is all of our Walla Walla onions, which you can't see them super well, but there's quite a few in there that have come up. So definitely working well. So now we are in the basement, and this is sort of our goldfish winter holding area with grow lights, not only to keep some of the pond plants alive over the winter because none of this is cold hardy enough, but also we can maintain some edible plants under it, which is awesome. So we've got a celery plant that actually came from a grocery store plant that we cut off the stems and we planted the sort of the base, and that's what we've got, which is pretty good, I think. And these bok choy plants is one that wants to go to flower, which we're going to have to nip that off here in a moment. But these are the same thing. These are just bok choy that we got from the grocery store on the discount rack, actually. And I mean, there's already a meal on that one that's going to flower, so that's not too bad. I think this is quite impressive. This is our Chinese pink celery, little seedlings. And we just started them down here. It's unheated, etc. And there's what we've got for growth so far. I really need to get in there and break some of those up, I think, and get them planted into their own individual trays. But that'll be a job, I think, for the weekend. And you can see down here, these are our, can't really see them, I guess, but the goldfish in here are kind of our medium-sized goldfish that we've overwintered inside. We've sort of since found that we can overwinter quite a few goldfish in the pond, so we'll see if we keep quite so many indoors over the winter, but everything's kind of come along pretty good, and all of this will be moving outside very shortly. And over here we have a mix of lettuces, kale, and cabbage plants that are all going to be moving to the porch here very shortly. Probably could have done that this weekend, but I think we'll wait until after a little cold spell, because these aren't quite as big and as hardy as the ones that you saw out on the porch. And I think I'll leave you with a last look at some things that are in the oddly lit grow room, which is a lot warmer than the rest of the growing areas. And I'll just sort of show you what's in here because, again, a lot of this stuff is going to be getting ready to move out shortly. And a whole lot more is going to be started here in the very, very near future. I think one of the big ones, for me at least, is we have a lot of elderberry starts. So these are all clones that we took from cuttings on the property. And we have quite a few of them. There's some there. We've got some eucalyptus plants that need to go out on the porch here soon. More over here. As I pan around past the cat, we have a few willow clones that are doing decent, although I think they can probably go outside here very shortly. And we have more elderberry clones, so hopefully we're going to have a really good elderberry plantation after this year, and something we're going to definitely continue in the near future. We have some sage that we actually got at the end of last season from the garden center for free, I believe, when they were just kind of getting rid of all the herbs that we've overwintered inside. It's done decent. I think it's looking like it's ready to go out though. And some bay laurel, which really excited about them. They've done really well over the winter months. We have our eggplants, which are actually starting to bounce back a bit. They were really slow to go, but we had a really good year this year for seedlings compared to last year, where I think we got like 5. So hopefully this will be a good eggplant year. We have our sweet Italian frying peppers and a random lettuce plant. These guys are going to be going out somewhere a little warmer here soon too. These are some little citrus plants, which are all looking really good actually, except for the one at the front there. But the rest of them are doing amazing, so I'm very curious to see how this experiment goes. So stay tuned, because eventually this year you'll hear more about these little guys. And our little Aurora dwarf hot peppers, which are actually looking pretty good. These guys stay really small, and we're basically planning to grow them on the porch to allow us to isolate, because they won't really be accessible for cross-pollination there. So there you have it. I'll leave you there with the end of our early spring or end of April garden tour. And although we weren't in the garden the whole time, there was still some stuff going on there, which is awesome. And there's still a lot of stuff that either has to be planted or will be moving outdoors very soon. So we're looking forward to a great garden season.